I'm going to get right into this. There's a lot of material to cover, and I think you'll find this interesting. But I will tell you, this is Frito-Lay and PepsiCo's approach to environmental sustainability. Probably isn't a fit for everybody, but we think we've had a pretty successful program. We've been doing this for quite a number of years. I'll start out with those logos there. They actually mean something. And in PepsiCo, and those of you who follow PepsiCo, Indra Nooyi has been the CEO there for going on 6 years. And we actually run on 3 operating planks, okay? So there's human sustainability, which is about making products healthier, and we've been doing a lot of work in that area, both organically and through acquisition. Talent sustainability, which is about making sure that every associate in the company reaches their full potential, and environmental sustainability. So there's not like 20 of them, there's 3, okay? So we're going to talk today about environmental sustainability. Now, just a little bit about PepsiCo and Frito-Lay. PepsiCo is obviously a very big global food and beverage company. We do about $66 billion a year in sales. Our profits are $6 to $7 billion, which is approximately what annual operating cash flow is, and we operate all over the world. Okay, so big company. Frito-Lay North America is the largest division of PepsiCo. We do about $13 billion in sales, and we'll have a profit this year of about $4 billion. So that's Frito-Lay North America. Okay, so environmental sustainability. The way we approached environmental sustainability goes back about 12, 13 years now, okay? Back to 1999. So in 99, 2000, when this really wasn't even fashionable, you know, nobody had seen Al Gore's movie and things like that, we decided that as part of our productivity programs, which I've been heading up since that period of time, environmental sustainability, or we used to call it resource conservation, there was a lot of money to be saved in that area. As many of you know, in food manufacturing, particularly when you're making a finished product, you use a lot of water, you use a lot of natural gas, and use a lot of electricity. We're also a direct store distribution company. We have the 7th largest private fleet in North America, so we use a lot of motor fuel, a lot of diesel fuel. We have 20,000 trucks in our fleet. So if you look at water, natural gas, and electricity, that's where we started in 1999, 2000. We use 1999 as our baseline, and we established what we call BHAGs. Those of you who've read the Jim Collins books, Built to Last and Good to Great, you might remember that concept. It's big, hairy, audacious goals, okay? They're things you really don't know how to do. They're going to challenge people. You're not going to accomplish them in a year or two. They're going to take a long time, but you set some really big goals out there, okay? So in water, gas, electricity, we said we're going to reduce our water usage by 50% per unit of production, our natural gas by 30%, and our electricity by 25%. Everybody said, that's ridiculous, we'll never be able to do it, why'd you ever say that, we're going to have to put it on our financial plans now, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, okay? So you see where we're at as of last year. We basically have achieved all that. We're 45% reduced in water, we're 33% reduced in natural gas, 25% in electricity. In 2007, we said, you know, in the true thinking of environmental footprint, you've got to look at the trucking operation also, because we're burning an awful lot of diesel fuel. As a matter of fact, when we started this program, and even today, we're about a third natural gas, a third electricity, and a third motor fuel on that type of carbon footprint. Well, there's other types of carbon footprints, you know, all the way through the supply chain. I'll touch on that briefly. So what we decided to set as a BHAG in motor fuel was, we said, you know what? We believe we can reduce our gallons used, this is in absolutes, okay, just absolute gallons, by 50% between 2008 and 2020. Of course, everybody said that's impossible. You're not going to shrink the business, we hope, okay? How are you ever going to do that? I'll show you how we're going to do that. We're 15% reduced already since 2008 baseline in motor fuel. All of this added together in an annual operating cost basis saves us about $80 million a year just in these areas, okay? We also, when we went big on this program, we said we want to get external validation of the program. We've been named EPA Energy Star Partner of the Year for the last 7 years, the last 5 years at the sustained excellence level. We were one of the early companies to sign up with the EPA Climate Leaders Program, which you may know has been discontinued by the EPA. However, before it got discontinued, we did hit our goal. It was a 14% reduction in greenhouse gas between 2002 and 2010. We hit it a year early in 2009, which is a good thing we did, because I think they ended the program around 2009, 2010. Fast Company magazine, this was a couple of years ago. We didn't even really go after this. If you read that magazine, you've ever seen it, it's kind of a leading edge magazine, and this particular edition, they were naming the 50 most innovative companies in the world, okay? So who's on the cover of the magazine? It's Mark Zuckerberg, Facebook, you know, okay? Who's number 2? It's like Apple, and then Google, and eBay, and all that kind of business. And then you get to number 28, and lo and behold, it's Frito-Lay. You know, how does a old line food manufacturing company make it into the top 50 in Fast Company magazine, most innovative companies? It was around environmental sustainability, okay? So we thought that was rather interesting, okay? We have been a member, PepsiCo has been a member of the Dow Jones Sustainability Index for a number of years now. In 2011, PepsiCo was named the #1 company in the food and beverage super sector. They have these super sector things. So #1 company globally in the food and beverage super sector, and the only domestic company, the only US-based company to be #1 in any of the 19 super sectors in the Dow Jones Sustainability Index. We feel that the foundational environmental sustainability programs, because this isn't just environmental sustainability, there are other criteria in there. We do believe that the environmental sustainability program globally was foundational to that recognition by the Dow Jones Sustainability Index, okay? So a number of years ago, our CFO, Dave Rader, who is now retired, called me down to his office and he said, you know, this is a great operations program you've developed here. And this was back in about 08, 07. But he said, I want you to think about making this a company-wide program, and I want to really get this thing into a strategy. And he assigned some of his strategic thinking, or strategic planning folks to help me with this. And they're Stanford MBAs and Harvard MBAs. And I was kind of like, how are they going to help me on this stuff that's really engineering based? And it was really the smartest thing we ever did, because they helped us really think about this in simplified terms and then how to build this all across Frito-Lay and all across PepsiCo. So here's what we did. We came up with a strategy and we said, okay, we're going to have one bold goal. It's more of a provocative statement than something we can actually do as a manufacturing distribution company, to leave no trace. That's our bold goal. Our strategy is to conserve and preserve the Earth's natural assets in the areas of water, energy, and land. Pretty simple. And we have 3 strategic objectives: to perpetually reduce the consumption of non-renewable natural assets, to have a step function change in consumer loyalty and customer intimacy, and to embed sustainability in the cultural DNA of Frito-Lay. Sound good? Okay, now you got to say, that's great. How are you going to do this? How are you going to do that? So let me show you. Okay, so what we did is we broke the company up into 4 segments, okay, or let me say 4 quadrants, okay? So we said, what do we do here? We make things, we move things, we sell things, and we support the making, moving, and selling of things, okay? So we kind of came up with that little kind of circle there, and we said, we're going to impact this to the point that we write the last check, okay? Because we're not trying to solve global warming, and we're not trying to solve world hunger here. We're trying to have an impact on the environment out to the point that we write the last check. What I mean by that is, and you'll see this in a minute, we're an agro-business, as many of you might be. So we're not going to, we're going to influence farmers, but we're not going to influence the tractor manufacturer, okay, or the fertilizer manufacturer. You know, you've got to stop somewhere, and that's what Dave Rader asked me to do. So if you look at the way we laid this out, if we just look at manufacturing, we said, okay, we control the plants and equipment. We own 30 manufacturing plants in the US, 6 more in Canada, which fall into my area of responsibility. We can control product design. We control packaging. Remember, we're a packaged goods company. We make 17 billion bags of product a year. 17 billion, okay? So these are like really big numbers. You know, it's like a penny a bag turns into a huge amount of money, okay? Co-packers and suppliers, we don't make every single thing that we produce because we don't have core competency in some areas like dips, okay? But we can influence that. And we deal with a lot of growers. We deal with a lot of corn growers, potato growers, et cetera. Agriculture is a big part of the footprint, okay? That's probably our least developed area, as you'll see. We did the same thing in move, fleet practices, common carriers, et cetera, et cetera. The key to think about this here is, as you move away from the center of this wheel, we call this the wheel of sustainability, it gets more difficult to influence. Like plants and equipment, we own them. We want to spend the money, we can do whatever we want, right? Packaging, we have a lot of control over the packaging. As we move out to the agro, tougher to control. Same thing on fleet. We own the fleet. We have 20,000 trucks. That's a lot of trucks. We don't own the common carriers. Can we influence the common carriers? Yes, we can influence the common carriers. They're not a huge part of our transportation, okay? Everybody got kind of that idea? I'm going to concentrate today on the making and the moving. I'm not going to go into a lot of detail on the selling and the supporting, okay? The selling is really about how do you market this, how do you talk to big customers like Walmart, Subway about this type of topic. And any of you know anything about Walmart, you know this is very important to Walmart, and Walmart is everybody's biggest customer, including us. So I got to tell you, you better have a credible, tangible sustainability program when you're talking to Walmart, okay? All right, so let's take a look at the make quadrant. So we'll take a look at plants and equipment on through 1.5, which is agriculture. So I'm going to show you a bunch of projects here, okay? So engineers in the room are going to like this, and the non-engineers are going to like it too. All right, so this is a project we put in exactly 4 years ago this week, okay? It started up. It is the largest solar concentrator in the United States. We partnered with the state of California on this. We got a grant from the California Energy Commission to help fund this. And this is parabolic mirrors that cover 5 football fields. So there's a lot of them, all right? And what we're doing here is we're concentrating the energy of the sun on a pipe full of water that's in a continuous loop running around this field. Then that pipe full of water goes into the plant, and it runs through a pressure vessel that's full of water. Okay, that water in that pipe, and by the way, these mirrors rotate all day long to capture the energy of the sun. If you heat that pipe full of water up to 500 degrees Fahrenheit and I run it through a pressure vessel full of water, what do I get? I get steam. We cook with steam. So that steam goes right up into our steam header, and we're we're using renewable energy to make steam to help run the plant. Now, we happen to make sun chips in this plant. It's one of our products. You can imagine that when I told the marketing guys about this, they were like, wow, we got to see this. So we were able to do some marketing around solar energy being used to help manufacture sun chips in Modesto, California. We sized the field so that on an annual basis, the energy that is recovered from the sun is the equivalent amount of energy used to make the steam to make the annual production of sun chips in the manufacturing plant, okay? So that's one of the projects that we did in the last few years. They're not all that glamorous. This is a Lean Six Sigma based project. We have a big Lean Six Sigma program that reports into me. And we have 30 full-time black belts. We got a whole bunch of green belts in the field and Kaizen leaders and so forth. This is one of our early projects that one of our black belts did who happened to be in the energy area. And what we did here is we developed standards for all of our manufacturing processes that said, okay, if you're manufacturing potato chips, it's different than manufacturing Cheetos. What's the amount of gas, electricity, water you're supposed to use to make these products? Once we develop standards, we can then measure efficiency, because we use zero-based standards in a lot of our models. And what we were able to do here, we've taken the company basically to 99% efficiency in our manufacturing plants in the use of natural gas from about 85%. That saves us about $1 million a year. It's less now because the price of natural gas has come down. I remember what the price of natural gas was 4 years ago, okay? This is a project in a plant in California. It's Rancho Cucamonga. This is using, they're called Mura boilers to make hot water for the plant. This is a corn plant only. We don't make potato chips there, so we use a lot of hot water to cook and soak corn. The existing equipment was very old, as validated by thermographic testing. It wasn't worth fixing. We put this very high efficiency equipment in, and runs a lot better. These are like these instant hot water heaters that people put in their houses. That's what we're doing here. This is one of my favorite projects. This is one where we're basically heating the oil in a fryer that makes tortilla chips for free. So when you're making tortilla chips, you first kind of toast the product in an oven, and then you put the product into a fryer, and then it becomes a tortilla chip. Well, the waste heat coming out of these ovens is 900 degrees Fahrenheit. It just goes out the stack. So what we do here is we capture that waste heat at 900 degrees Fahrenheit. We run it through these mini boilers on the roof that have a little tube bundle in them full of water. Again, you take 900 degrees, you introduce it to water, you end up with steam. We dump the steam into the steam header, and that steam header is supplying the heat exchanger that heats the oil to 360 degrees Fahrenheit to make the tortilla chips. So basically, we've offset the natural gas used to heat the oil with recovered energy. So this is an energy recovery project, okay? All right, now that's for a steam plant. Not all our plants run on steam. Several of them are older plants. They run on natural gas, which is indirectly fired into a heat exchanger. So what do you do there? Well, here's a project we put into Fayetteville, Tennessee, where we completely reinvented the heat exchanger. We redesigned it. We put fins on the tube bundles to get better heat transfer, okay? And we took heat exchangers that were about 55% efficient up to 90% efficient. Then we did the same thing. We recovered that waste heat off the tortilla chips oven stack. We put it into a convection section, which was designed into this heat exchanger, and we run this plant now on the tortilla chip lines at 65% reduced natural gas at 150% efficiency. So we tripled the efficiency of the system, cut our natural gas use by about 2/3, okay? On potato chip lines, we're dealing with a lower grade of heat. It's much wetter heat. The raw material going into the lines is wetter, potato chip slices, potato slices. But we're able to recover heat there as well. We use it for building heat, for hot water, et cetera. It works really well economically in our colder weather plants. And we have lots of plants in cold climates, so we're able to install this technology in several locations. Another thing we do is we don't waste anything. I'll tell you a little bit about our zero waste programs in a minute. So when you're making potato chips, you end up with starch. You have this waste starch that's kind of washed off the slices. When you slice them, there's starch on the slices. It's in this big water bath. We're able to vacuum that starch out of there using a centrifuge and then a vacuum system. You see the vacuum belt there. We sell that starch, which we add no value to. It is what it is. We sell it to a couple of different companies that use it for laundry grade starch, paper making, pharmaceutical filler, et cetera. They make it into food grade starch. We get $10 million a year in revenue. Not bad, $10 million for waste, okay? So we made the project even better by saying we've got to dry that stuff out because nobody wants to haul water all over the country to wherever it's going. We have to dry it to about 14% moisture. So we take the waste heat off the equipment, off the potato chip line heat exchanger, and we use that to dry the starch for free, okay? So it's a waste product that is dried with no energy cost to it, okay? Pretty neat project, $10 million. Okay, all right, now I want to move into some renewables that we've been working with in the last few years. This is a biomass boiler in Topeka, Kansas, started up in 2010. It's running great. Runs the entire plant with, we've taken the natural gas usage in the plant down by 80%. We still use natural gas in the tortilla chip ovens. Now this boiler is fueled as 400 PSI, 60,000 pounds an hour. So it's a pretty decent sized boiler, okay? What we're fueling the boiler with is waste agricultural products. The city of Topeka, they're trimming trees, they're picking up yard waste, they have nowhere to put this stuff, okay? So we work with waste management, they chip it into a kind of like yard mulch almost, into a chip form, we burn that in the boiler. We also mix it with waste pallet material, GMA pallets, that a pallet rebuilder in that area has a lot of waste wood, they have no use for it. We take it, waste management chips it up for us, and that's what we use to fuel the boiler, okay? We use the ash, we sell the ash to a cattle feed company. Kansas has a lot of cattle feeds, Kansas City, and they use that for soil stabilization in dry cattle feed lots. Okay, so again, no waste, all right? So biomass boiler. This is a project that just started up now. It's a heat recovery project. It's in Kirkwood, New York. We had some state help on this thing to make the economics work. And basically what we're doing here is we're recovering all the waste heat in the plant. I mean literally all the waste heat from the ovens, the fryers, et cetera, running that through a waste heat boiler and reducing the amount of natural gas we have to use in the gas-fired boilers that we use to run the plant. This is a very interesting project. It's a combined heat and power project in Connecticut. We have a large plant in Connecticut. And those of you who are in that part of the country, you may know that the electricity rates are very high. They're 14 cents a kilowatt hour on the industrial rate, and they were going up about 10% a year. 5 years ago, the state of Connecticut passed some legislation that incented companies like us to get off the grid. They wanted us to get off the grid because the grids were so congested up there. Well, they gave us a grant of $1,700,000 to help fund a combined heat and power system in Connecticut, which basically makes all the electricity for the plant. And then we take the waste heat off the turbine, which is 1,000 degrees Fahrenheit. We run it through a waste heat boiler and a duct burner, and have basically taken down 3 45,000 pound per hour high pressure boilers. We only run one of them on very low fire just as a backup, okay? So a big greenhouse gas emission reduction and a big NOx reduction. You see the NOx reduction is about 60%. Now here's what was so interesting about this project. So the project, even at 14 cents a kilowatt hour, really didn't make great economic sense. It was about a 12 IRR, 12% internal rate of return. Okay, that barely meet our hurdles for these types of projects. Now the state comes along and they say, well, we'll give you $1.7 million to do this. Okay, now that gets us over the hurdle rate. Had a little selling to do with New York. I had to get this approved by PepsiCo in New York and explained the whole situation to them and said, hey, the grant's on the table now. Let's grab the grant. Because in Connecticut, they raise the rates 10% a year, okay? It's like, okay, go ahead. Well, then what ends up happening is the DOE comes along and says, hey, we'd like you to do a case study on this for industry. We'll give you $350,000 to do the case study. I'm like, sold, okay? We'll take the money, all right? Raises the IRR. Now, some of this was just timing and fortuitous. We couldn't see this, okay? So all the whole economic collapse and some of the TARP legislation somebody put in a 10% federal tax credit on combined heat and power. We fell into the timing to get that. So 10% federal tax credit, that's dollar for dollar. That's 10 cents off your tax bill, 10 cents on the dollar off your tax bill, okay? Then we find out we can sell Class 3 renewable energy credits back to the power company because we don't have any use for them. $350,000 a year, 3-year contract, raises the internal rate of return. Now, what's happened in the last 5 years of the price of natural gas? Way down. We're going to talk about that in a minute, okay? So last year, with gas at what it was last year, whatever it was, about $4 an MMBTU, we're now up to a 22% IRR. At the price of gas we're hedging out on now, this is a 30 IRR project. This just rains money, okay? So I always tell my boss, hey, listen, when these things look good, let's grab them because, you know, half the time they're going to wind up being great, okay? So here's a project that went from good to great, okay? Because 30 IRR, I don't have many of those around. If I had those, I'd get them funded like tomorrow. Other types of projects we do, this is replacing old inefficient nitrogen generation systems, reduce your power by 50%. In the water area, we've done a lot of work in water to get to a 45% reduction. These are centrifuges we put in. We figured out how to reduce the amount of water we use to cook and soak corn, et cetera. Some of these projects also have energy advantages to them because in cooking and soaking corn, basically what we did is instead of dumping the whole water in these cook kettles, we dump about half of it, then put fresh water on top of what's already in there. It's fine on product quality, but what's already in there is really warm water. So you're saving more energy financially, really, on a project like this than you're ever going to save in water, okay? All right, so price of natural gas, right? I mean, this isn't even accurate on this chart anymore. What was the price of natural gas on the spot market 2 weeks ago? It's $1.96. Went down to $1.96 one day, okay? I haven't seen that in 10, 12 years. Okay, you see the curve, right? So we were very smart in manufacturing, putting in all these projects and getting our gas usage down by 33%, right up to those peaks you see in there. I will tell you, natural gas, I believe natural gas is going to be cheap for a long, long time in the United States. If you want to read about that, go look up Wall Street Journal, 2010, May 10th, okay? And you'll see there's a big article in there, and it talks about hydraulic fracturing and horizontal drilling. You all know what that is, right? Price of natural gas is going to stay low. There's a lot of gas in this country, Marcellus Shale, Barnett Shale. There's a lot of shale formations. They know how to get this gas out. They can get oil out with the gas. It's going to be cheap for a long time. So we had to look at, okay, what are we going to do? Because we did all the relatively easy stuff and some of the hard stuff in the last 10, 12 years. At $4 gas, because you have to have $1.25 onto that $2 to get it from Henry Hub to your plant, right? But even at those prices of $4, $5, we're hard pressed to find good economics on these projects. So what we're doing is we're going back through the last 12 years. We're optimizing every technology, process, and system we've put in across the United States and Canada. So, you know, boilers and burners and demand expanders and heat exchangers, steam traps, and all that stuff. We've got a whole program where we're just making sure everything out there is running the way it's supposed to run. Because, you know, in a plant, it's not always true. You know, it's just not. And then we have a scorecard that our leader in this program happens to be the guy that invented those standards years ago through Lean Six Sigma. He uses this scorecard where he goes to each plant, and you see all the plants and all the technologies. One's on one axis, one's on the other. They go out and they say, is this thing running at standard or not? If it's not, he works with them to get it up to standard, or in some cases, if the technology wasn't even put in, we look at the economics and say, can we still get it in? That's more of the exception. So hopefully we're making this scorecard much greener. Well, it's pretty green right now. We're making it greener. If you look in it, you can't read any of that, but the reds are mostly in the compressed air area. It's one of the areas that we need more work in as to what the pressures are we're using. Leaks, we have ultrasonic testing we use for leaks today and stuff like that. Still more work to do in that area. Okay, so shifting gears a little bit, about 5 years ago, our CEO, Al Carey, called me down to his office and he said, hey, what is Subaru doing on the zero landfill thing, okay? Matter of fact, they're running commercials on that again now. We went up, we looked at Subaru's program, said we can do that in Frito-Lay. We might even be able to do it a little better. We've taken our landfill, waste going to landfills in our manufacturing plants was about 7%. About 7% of the waste went to a landfill. We then looked at this and said, well, okay, can we get it to under 1%? We're almost there. We have, actually this, I just got an update on this. We have 27 plants out of 30, well, let's call it 35 because this includes Canada. We have 30 plants out of about 35 that send less than 1% of their waste to landfill, okay? That's obviously made some money for us too, like $6 million a year difference. And I always ask the plants, would you rather cut a check or cash a check? They're like, we want to cash checks. I'm like, okay, good. Then figure out how to get this stuff to be renewable, recyclable, et cetera. And when you're selling it to somebody, instead of just sending it to a landfill, they're going to write you a check, okay, $6 million in saved tipping fees and checks coming into the company, okay? It's a great project. What really came out of this, though, was as we looked at what the waste was that was going to landfill, and it was no longer going to landfill, finished product, a lot of finished product, okay? So we said, okay, we're finding animal food manufacturers that can use that finished product waste. That's great. But the animal food people, they're not going to pay much for that, okay? So I remember doing a presentation, and our CEO said to me, he said, because here's where we went. Let me back up a minute. So we said, okay, we're putting a program in place to take our finished waste down from about 4% of total production to under 1%, okay? That's worth tens of millions of dollars in a company that makes 3 billion pounds, okay? So remember, because this is all finished. It's at the end of the process. So you don't want to throw it away then. We've already picked up one whole point of that challenge from 4 to 1. We'll be at 1 in about 3 years, okay? So I remember talking to our CEO, and he said, hey, if the animal food people, the animals will pay $6 a pound, we'll be happy to sell it to them. But I don't think the animals will pay $6 a pound. So the idea is stop wasting the finished product. So we have a whole program on that that's been in about 2 years. LEED, we made a decision a number of years ago. We said we're going to get several facilities certified as LEED Gold. We were already doing the work anyway. We just wanted to get the external validation. You can see what we've done. Our headquarters in Plano, Texas, which is about 700,000 square feet, is LEED Gold. It was opened in 1985. We did a lot of retrofits in there, made it much more energy efficient. And 13 of our big manufacturing plants are certified as LEED Gold. Our first LEED facility was our Rochester, New York distribution center. We've since done a brand new distribution. Both of these are brand new, the one in Rochester. And more recently, about 2 years ago, we opened one in Honolulu that is LEED Gold as well. And I haven't updated this slide because I haven't been back in the office in about 2 weeks, really. The Los Angeles mega DC, it's one of the largest DCs in the company. We said we're going to have one platinum facility. We upgraded that. We went to the USGBC with that, and I can tell you as of about a week ago, we got certification that our Los Angeles distribution center is LEED Platinum. So our program is done as designed and done. Okay? Okay, let me talk about kind of our flagship plant here. This is a plant in Arizona. It's in Casa Grande, Arizona. It's about 45 minutes south of Phoenix. At the end of 2006, we showed Indra Nooyi a concept, and we said, Indra, we said, we have the wherewithal and the know-how to take a plant completely off the grids, almost completely off the grids. Water, natural gas, electricity, landfill, everything, okay? But we weren't building any plants. We haven't built a plant in 14 years, okay? I built 5 in the early years of my career, but we haven't built any in 14 years. So I was like, it's just an idea, you know, I'm just throwing out an idea. Well, lo and behold, a week later, I get told, well, the company wants to do this. I'm like, we're not building a plant. They're like, well, they don't care. Retrofit a plant. Go retrofit some plant, okay? Like, wow, I opened my mouth, so I got to go do this now, okay? So we worked with the National Renewable Energy Laboratory in Golden, Colorado, and we worked with them and said, Let's look at a few plants that might work here. We came down to Casa Grande, Arizona as the plant. Medium-sized plant, a lot of sun. I mean, we wanted to definitely have a solar presence on this thing. And it's also in the middle of the desert. So we were doing a lot of work in water. Figured if we can do something to really reduce water in the middle of the desert and really leverage the sun, could be an interesting project. So here's what we've done. We've put in a biomass boiler, like the one you saw in Kansas. It's the same boiler, basically. We've put in a membrane bioreactor with secondary filtration. We have very large solar presence there. So here's what it is. Membrane bioreactor with secondary filtration basically takes dirty processed water. A plant like this uses 400,000 gallons of water a day, okay? It was going out on a land application field, okay? So today, we use this membrane bioreactor with secondary filtration. It has a reverse osmosis system on it, ultraviolet, chlorination, et cetera. We recycle 75% of the water in the plant. And the water we're recycling is better water than what people are drinking out of their taps at home in Arizona. And I can prove that by the independent laboratory analysis of what's in that water. Matter of fact, I just had a tour out there, and one of our senior VPs, or he is the senior VP of International Operations, said to me, "Why are you making the water so good?" He says, "Your water is as good as Aquafina, which is our bottled water." I'm like, well, I didn't think about it. Couldn't have any problems with it, right, because it has to go back into food contact, so we made it that good, okay? So it's excellent water. You see the two engineers there who put the system in, drinking the water, which we did with CDM, who I know is sponsoring part of this conference, and I told them, when you guys are drinking the water, I'll know we're in good shape. Well, you see them there drinking the water, okay? All right, on the renewable energy side, 75% of this plant runs on renewable energy. We have a 36-acre solar field. It's single-axis solar trackers, dual-axis solar trackers, covered parking lot that's single-axis solar trackers, and Stirling engines, okay? And you see the biomass boiler there. So when you aggregate all of that, because most of our energy use is in steam, not electricity, run this plant on 75% renewable energy. It's also a literally zero landfill plant. It was our first LEED Gold plant, so it's kind of got all the boxes checked off. We're pleased and we thank you for recognition by Food Engineering Magazine, a Sustainable Plant of the Year. What's ironic on this is when this plant opened 27 years ago, it was Plant of the Year by Food Engineering Magazine, and then 25, 27 years later, a sustainable plant. And the gentleman who was the program manager on the original plant, or the base project in the mid-'80s, Rick Calamari, who some of you may know, I kidded Rick. I said, you know, Plant of the Year, Plant of the Year. And Rick retired last week. So I sent him a note. I said, not too many people put that on their resume. And he said, Dave, I don't need a resume anymore. Okay, I'm going to kind of speed up a little bit here. When we look at product design, if I had talked to marketing and R&D about the sustainable attributes of new products 5 or 8 years ago, they would have said, we don't even know what you're talking about. Today we would look at that. We would look at where raw materials are sourced from. Is this product an energy hog? Is it a water hog? How do we make it not such a hog? How do we make it more of a sustainable new product? Packaging. As one of the largest, if not the largest, consumer packaged goods company going, we've got to be cognizant of packaging. So this is one area that I'm real proud of. We reuse all of our boxes. We pack about 500 million retail boxes a year. Okay, 500 million, half a billion, okay? A box costs 50 cents, okay? So you could say, well, if you pack that many boxes, you throw them away, that's $250 million, right? Okay, we don't do that. The salesmen take the box, and they bring the box back. We bring all the boxes back. We bring back 99.1% of the boxes that go out with a salesman come back. We use the boxes over and over again until they fall apart, okay? Now, when you're doing automation, that's tough, and we're doing that because you're getting all different kinds of boxes going through this automation. A brand new box to a box that's been out there 7 times, okay? Well, that saves us a ton of money, and it prevents the cutting down, if you were able to extrapolate this, 4 million trees a year are not cut down because Frito-Lay reuses its boxes, okay? So a great program on packaging. Other packaging programs that, you know, obviously these things save us money. Everything we do saves us money. We're not, you know, we're a company that there is a business case to all of this, okay? So we're not doing anything that is, you know, just a good thing to do. Clear to metallized packaging has been a good environmental approach. Right-sizing our bags, you know, getting them to be as small as they can be and still give the right shelf impression and be able to get the product in the bag because we're a form, fill, and seal type of a product. So those of you who know anything about packaging, that kind of stuff, it's in flight. You know, you weren't relying on gravity to get that product in the bag. You got to have some room in the bag to get the product in. Our efficiency in our manufacturing plants, we're quite efficient today. We're almost 1%. We're only about 1.3% waste on our bags. We used to be 2.5%. Saves a lot of bags from being thrown away and going into a landfill. Our co-packers and suppliers, we have engineers that actually support them. We have 2 dedicated engineers. We don't charge them for it. They're out there working with our suppliers and co-packers. They're doing the same goals we're doing. I mean, this is, I think this is Bob Shearer's plant. Bob Shearer's plant, he just built one. I got a call. He's got a LEED Platinum plant in Massillon, Ohio. So I get a call saying, how come he's got a LEED Platinum plant? I'm like, well, you know, he built a new plant. When we build a new plant, we'll have the LEED Platinum, you know. So this is really cool because our suppliers and co-packers have really gotten on the bandwagon and in a way are trying to outdo us, which I'm okay with. You know, I'm like, well, if you guys are doing such great work, great, okay? Agriculture, you know, we ship a lot of potatoes. This is an area we're working on here. We're working on organic fertilizers, pesticide control, all that kind of stuff you would expect us to do. But here's one that I think is a big one because I know there's a lot of money involved in this too. When you're shipping potatoes, you're shipping a lot of water, okay? So we're shipping potatoes from all over the country because, you know, potatoes you don't have them all in one place all the time. You know, right now we're shipping potatoes from Florida up into New York and Connecticut. That's a long haul of potatoes. They pretty much go by truck. If we can increase our rail shipments, there's a lot of savings. There's a lot of diesel fuel to be saved as well because rail car uses 1/3 to 1/4 of what a diesel truck will use, okay? So those are some areas we're working on in agriculture. So let me shift over to fleet, okay? In fleet, you know, remember we have this big fleet. So what we look in fleet is we look at renewable fuel sources, engine fuel efficiency, driver feedback systems, and vehicle design. And we have a portfolio of projects that are rolling out. They're happening. I'll talk about a few of these things in study. They're in pilot. And then some way out there type technology. So we have a group of fleet engineers that work on this stuff full time. And some of them we actually came out of the automotive industry. So these are pretty cool. So 5 years ago, you remember Goldman Sachs said oil would be $200 a barrel. Actually, it was 4 years ago. It was 2008, right? It was right before the economic collapse. Remember the price of fuel? I mean, I remember being in California. Diesel fuel was $5.25 a gallon, okay? It was crazy. And that was at $140 a barrel, and Goldman Sachs was saying $200 a barrel. Everybody was in a panic. That didn't happen, fortunately. But we said, look, we got to make some decisions here. So our route trucks, that's a route truck there. That route truck was getting about 9 mpg. It was a Ford route truck, 9 mpg. That's not that exciting when you're paying over $5 a gallon. We switched our purchases to Mercedes Sprinters, okay? They get 18 mpg. Some of them get 20 if you really keep them really tightly maintained and tuned, right? Front end alignments, tire pressure, stuff like that. You doubled your mpg immediately. We replace about 1,000 trucks a year, just the life cycle of the trucks. Okay, we have about 15,000 of these types of trucks, and they last about 15 years. So do the math. You replace 1,000 a year. You're taking a 9 mpg truck off the road. You're putting an 18 mpg truck on the road. Okay, good. There's better to come. In tractors, we were buying all dual axle. We do a lot of backhaul and freight hauling and intercompany, with Pepsi and all that. Everything's got to be dual axle. One of our Lean Six Sigma black belts did a study on that, and she came back and said no. She said only need about 15% of the trucks have to be dual axle. We're way over buying these trucks. We switched to single axle. You raise your MPG about 1 MPG, which at 7 to 8 is a big percentage. The trucks are cheaper. They require less maintenance. There are less tolls in certain parts of the country. Good project. Okay? Electric trucks. We are the largest electric truck operator in the United States. These are 24-foot box trucks. We have a whole bunch of them. We have about 3,000 of them. A lot of them are really old. They have to be replaced. We've been partnering with Smith Electric for about 3 years now to get these trucks designed and on the road. We have about 200 of them operating right now. We buy about 75 to 100 a year right now. I will tell you, you have to get government grants to make these things financially feasible. They're very expensive today. They're lithium-ion batteries. There's no motor on the truck. Therefore, there's no maintenance. There's no motor fuel. It's not a hybrid. It's all electric. We plug them in at our distribution centers. Our average cost of fuel at our distribution centers is 9 cents per kilowatt hour. At the price of diesel fuel, you're driving the truck for about 30 cents a gallon equivalent. I said 30 cents a gallon equivalent, okay? So you've got a big greenhouse gas reduction. You've got a huge savings. they work very well for us, okay? And we expect to continue in this business. The manufacturers know they've got to keep the prices at least. They've got to get the prices down, because if the government pulls back the subsidies, the whole thing's going to fall apart, because even we won't buy them if they don't make economic sense. We've been recognized as a leader in this industry. This is an event that was held in it was actually in a UPS garage in Washington, D.C. You see a couple of our guys. Mike O'Connell's the taller guy there with the president. He's the senior director for our fleet operations, and Steve Hansen's actually the engineer who's been doing all this work. And I was kidding our PR people. I said, you guys are really something. I said, how did you get the president photographed with a Frito-Lay truck behind him in a UPS garage? And they're like, we're really good PR people. It's like, you must be, okay? Now, in Mexico, we have business all over the world. In Mexico, our company is called Sabritas. Sabritas has a route truck, gets 30 MPG. I just said those Sprinters get 18. They get 30. How do they do that? Okay, well, there are Ford trucks. So I have Ford come in about 3 years ago and said, okay, we want to buy these trucks, all right? They're like, you can't. Why? Okay, they don't meet U.S. emission and safety standards. They don't make them in the U.S. I said, well, you guys need to figure that out, because I've got a really big purchase order in my pocket for you if you can do that. So I said, okay, we'll take that challenge. So today, we're working with Mercedes, Ford, and Fiat to build a 30-mile-per-gallon truck. 30 miles per gallon. I think we're going to end up at about 26, 27 MPG, okay, raw. Now, that's before we do all the aerodynamic work and everything else. We've already tested the Ford truck. It's in that 26 range. It's a 4-cylinder. It's fine for us. Remember, we're hauling very light stuff. I mean, potato chips and Cheetos don't weigh much, right? So imagine this. In 2013, if we can take 9 MPG trucks off the road and put 27 MPG trucks on the road, that's not a 2x now, that's a 3x improvement in miles per gallon. We're going to use 1/3 the fuel on those trucks. Okay, pretty amazing. All right, we've done propane conversions. These work real well also. We've done 120 of these in Michigan and Ohio. Again, a lot of government's help on this. These are relatively new, very low MPG trucks. So these are trucks getting 9 MPG we're going to have for 10 more years. They're 5 years old. What do you do with them? Convert them to propane, okay? Save a lot of money. The emissions are lower. Good project for us. I think the big play is compressed natural gas. See, this is where you have to be looking at the whole picture. So in manufacturing, remember I said we did a lot of work on natural gas. Can't make the economics work anymore because of the low price of the fuel. Now, because of the low price of the fuel, this is a home run. Okay, we're putting these trucks in now. The equivalent price is $1.75 a gallon, okay, instead of $4.50 a gallon. So we're buying about 100 of these trucks this year. We've already tested them. They work great. We're going compressed natural gas on trucks. Now, the country has to build out the infrastructure that you can actually fuel these things somewhere, okay? In Texas and California, it's there. We're going heavy in Texas and California. We just worked with the state of Wisconsin. We got a grant from them. We're building a fast fill fuel station at our Beloit, Wisconsin plant, where we're putting 12 of these trucks in, okay? So that's our first attempt. We're going to actually fuel them on site instead of going to some public place to fuel them. This is going to be a big play. So natural gas stays cheap. We could theoretically have a big chunk of our fleet. We have about 1,100 of these tractors on compressed natural gas in the next number of years, okay? We've also used people processes to improve MPG. This was a Lean Six Sigma project that was done a few years ago. This got an 11% mile per gallon improvement in our Modesto, California plant, just by teaching drivers how to drive more efficiently on tractors. We're using this with our sales force that drives those route trucks now. On average, we got about 6%. When you buy as many gallons as us, 6% is a lot of money, no capital. We use, now moving out on that wheel, we use UPS methods for our maintenance, which makes us highly efficient on maintenance. We use long life fluids. I'll ask a question. How many miles do you think we go with our synthetic fuels and our online fuel filtration systems on our tractors between oil changes? Anybody want to venture a guess? How much? 12,000? Okay. 185,000 miles. And believe me, I'm not going to blow up a $35,000 truck engine, okay? 185,000 miles between oil changes, okay? So you're not using the oil, and then you don't have to dispose of the oil, all right? Mode of transportation, they're no longer available. We were buying Hino box trucks, which had about a 50% improvement in MPG. We go intermodal and rail wherever it makes sense for us. All of our company cars are Priuses or Ford Escapes, which are hybrids. GPS systems, we put GPS systems on all our trucks. What GPS systems do for us, we have fleet managers that manage this stuff, because GPS won't save you anything unless you manage it. You have to manage the information with the people driving the trucks. We get the right truck on the right route. We use planned versus actual mileage, so people don't go out of route. We reduce idling on our route fleet by 40% on idling, because now you tell the sales guy, hey, you're idling this truck too much. No, I'm not doing that. And you show them the data. Oh, okay, you know. So you don't even have to get that far. Once they know that they've got the data, all of a sudden the idling goes down. And then just improve driver habits. On the common carrier side, all of our common carriers are required to be members of EPA SmartWay, where they make their own commitments to EPA to reduce their MPG. And we have some stipulations on our fuel surcharges that if they don't hit certain MPGs, we cut their fuel surcharges back, so it costs them money. So they have an incentive to make sure they hit that. So every plant in the United States and Canada has a picture that looks like this. And what it is it's everything they're going to do to be near net zero. Now, everybody's not going to be Casa Grande. We're not going to spend that kind of money everywhere. The returns on those on that site were not good. They were not great returns. But in that site where the returns were great I just had our Chief Personnel Officer and Executive Vice President of Global Operations out in Casa Grande at the beginning of the month. And the head of Global Operations asked me, he said, on the water system, he said, what was your return on investment? I said, this was a learning experience. There was no big return on investment. The Senior VP of International Operations jumped right in and said, hang on a minute. He said, we have 4 plants in Mexico putting this exact technology in right now, and if we didn't know how to run this technology, we'd have to relocate those 4 plants because their water's being curtailed in Mexico. What would it cost to relocate 4 plants? $100 million? That's a side ROI that we weren't thinking about then. So the company said, Ninja said, I want you to prove we can do it. I don't care if you get the return, because we're going to need this in the future. Well, here it is, okay? Case in point, I just said, I'm just going to shut up, let him make my argument for me, which I did. So every plant in the company's got a picture like this. And this happens to be Beloit, Wisconsin. You see those CNG trucks there? We just checked that box off, because we've been working on that for a couple of years. Okay. So let me wrap up. So a few years ago, this is actually in '08, we said, you know, we think we're doing pretty good at this, but we want to kind of develop a little network of advisors and get their input on how we're doing, get their advice. So we brought in the technical community, the government, the NGOs, and the marketing and PR groups. You can see it's NRail, it's Rocky Mountain Institute, it's the Department of Energy, it's EDF, it's Conservation International, et cetera. We spent 3 days with these groups in Washington, D.C., okay? And the bottom line was, they said this. They said, okay, you got a very impressive track record. Your goals are very ambitious. You're very comprehensive, broad and deep. They didn't have a lot of benchmarking opportunities for us. I like to do benchmarking because I'm like, I want to see what somebody else is doing, right? They're like, we don't know, we're sending people to see you. Okay, so we're still trying to find the best benchmarking opportunities. We find them, we go dig into them. Their recommendations were to think in absolutes. Remember, this was '08. It was our first year of that fuel, the motor fuel program. We said, that's going to be in absolutes. So we said, gotcha, we'll go absolute on that. Intensify our agro work, which is harder because we don't control all of it, okay? Consider carbon offsets. I am not a fan of carbon offsets personally because I don't think writing a check makes you green. I mean, you have to actually do the work, okay? So I was like, yeah, I don't write the checks, you know, go see the people in New York. Clear message on packaging. Some of you remember we were doing that compostable packaging back then with the sun chips, which we stopped doing because the bags were noisy and all that stuff. I would tell you, we had, because I get to read the customer complaints, we had just as many compliments as complaints, but it was like, it's not worth it, it's expensive, we're done with it, okay? We'll eventually go back to something as the technologies develop, but we were confusing people with the packaging at that point. Participate in grant programs, don't have to twist my arm to do that. And try to influence government policy, which we do through our public affairs group and our government affairs group. Okay, so in August of '08, we actually took. You're probably wondering what that is. That's the Biosphere in Tucson, Arizona. So we took the environmental leaders for all of PepsiCo Foods all of PepsiCo Food Americas which is from Canada to Argentina. We took those environmental leaders to the biosphere for, you know, kind of the right atmosphere and all. We had, who was it? We had Adam Werbach, who used to be the, he was the president of the Sierra Club. He was doing work with Walmart at the time, et cetera, as our keynote speaker, just to kind of develop the plans for the Americas in one location so that they all aligned, okay? So we had people from all over, like I said, from Canada down to Argentina. And remember that wheel I showed you? Everybody in that meeting worked on their components of the wheel because we're all a little bit different. You know, some of those countries, they don't have a big fleet. That's not going to be of interest to them. So it's like, well, what works for you? How are you going to build your wheel of sustainability out? And we walked out of that meeting in Tucson, Arizona, with pretty good alignment across all the divisions of PepsiCo in the Americas. You can see them there. And that holds today. I mean, we still, you can see I'm presenting this here in 2012. This work was done 4 years ago. So we think the program and the approach serves us well and continues to give us very good financial returns as well as reducing our environmental footprint quite significantly. So with that, I'm going to be complete. So thank you.